Night, and I hope I don't go too fast. There's a lot to digest here, I definitely understand. So anyway, we're going to start on Daniel 11 tonight. Unsealing the book of Daniel, the countdown to eternity. Again, the curtain of time is being drawn back to show God's people the future. And some of Spirit of Prophecy quotes that I'll be quoting here tonight, look at them very carefully. The perils of the last days are upon us, and in our work we are to warn the people of the danger they are in. Let not the solemn scenes which prophecy has revealed be left untouched. If our people were half awake, if they realized the nearness of the events portrayed in the Revelation, a reformation would be wrought in our churches, and many more would believe the message. The study of Revelation directs the mind to the prophecies of Daniel, and both present most important instructions given of God to men concerning events to take place at the close of this world's history. Study Revelation in connection with Daniel, for history will be repeated. We, with all our religious advantages, ought to know far more today than we do know. The followers of Christ are to combine in a strong effort to call the attention of the world to the fast fulfilling prophecies of the Word of God. The prophecies of Daniel and of John are to be understood. They interpret each other. They give to the world truths which everyone should understand. These prophecies are to be witnesses in the world. By their fulfillment in these last days, they will explain themselves. We are not now able to describe with accuracy the scenes to be enacted in our world in the future, but this we do know, that this is a time when we must watch unto prayer, for the great day of the Lord is at hand. Satan is rallying his forces. The coming 4 blood moons. In Jewish thinking, whenever the sun is in total eclipse, it is an omen for the nations. When the moon is in total eclipse, it is an omen for Israel. An omen is a prophetic sign, something that happens that is regarded as a sign of how somebody or something will fare in the future. The following are just a few facts concerning lunar eclipses which I found to be very interesting. A blood moon or a total eclipse has fallen on the first feast, Passover, and the last feast of Israel, the Feast of Tabernacles, only 8 times in the last 2,000 years. In 1492, 1494, there was on Passover and Tabernacles a blood moon. At this time was the Spanish Inquisition, when Spain fell and the Jews were expelled. But God provided a way and a place for the Jews. Columbus discovered America, an infant nation in which the Jews could flee to. In 1948 and 1949, again on both Passover and Tabernacles, there was a lunar eclipse. Before this was the Holocaust. Again, God provided a home for the Jews. Israel became a state. 1967 to 1968, this was a 6-day war between Israel and the Palestinians. There was a blood moon on Passover and Tabernacles. Jerusalem was recaptured and became a part of Jewish state. And as we all, I'm sure, know that in 2014 there was the blood moon on both Passover and Tabernacles. And then just 2 weeks ago we had the solar eclipse, which would be an omen for the nations. And then just Sabbath morning we had the lunar eclipse again. And how many got to see that? Interesting, that's great. Okay, and then the next one we're going to be having would be a partial solar eclipse, and that will be on the Feast of Trumpets on the first day, and then on the Feast of Tabernacles there's going to be another blood moon. Is God, the master timekeeper, using the motion of the planets to communicate with us of coming events? Could these 4 blood moons be a message from God that He, the creator of the universe, is about to intersect with human history? 4 blood moons in a row is called a tetrad. When it occurs on a Jewish high holy day, it coincides with major historical events like the Six-Day War in 1967 between Israel and the Palestinians. These tetrads occurring on Jewish high holy days has only happened 3 times in the last 500 years. Each time, historically, when these blood moons occur on God's appointed times, it went from tragedy to triumph for Israel. These rare phenomenons of 4 consecutive total lunar eclipses occurring in 2014 and 2015 could play a key role in these end-time events. The following article about the book and DVD of Pastor Mark Belts concerning the solar and lunar eclipses was written by Joseph Farah, founder and CEO of WorldNet Daily. Pastor Belts says, "The confluence of astronomical and biblical events is extremely noteworthy. All these signs coming together at once are potentially the culminating sign that God is closing this chapter of human history. This could be the final curtain call before the great tribulation mentioned in the Bible. God has always wanted to warn his people and the rest of the world before he intervenes. What better way to communicate to us than through the universal language of heavenly signs that speak to every tribe, tongue, and nation?" You can't mistake that, can we? That's not a man-made deal. God said in Genesis 1:14 that he created the sun, moon, and stars for signals on his feast days. The pastor is now sounding the alarm about what the celestial events could mean for our immediate future here on earth. 4 total lunar eclipses happening the next 2 years could herald possible war in the Middle East, as well as global economic collapse. He said historically, these types of solar eclipses have been signs foretelling important events, such as the destruction of the Temple of Jerusalem. 2 lunar eclipses happening right in a row at the time of the destruction of the temple in 70 AD and on feast days. Belt stresses what makes the coming events so startling is the fact they'll take place during the Feast of Passover and the Feast of Tabernacles in consecutive years. This has happened only 8 times over the last 2,000 years. And the last 2 times these occurred on the Jewish holidays, there was a war in the Middle East regarding the nation of Israel. These are patterns and historical facts that cannot be disregarded. The Jewish Talmud records that total lunar eclipses are indicators or omens for the nation of Israel. It's not a question of if these signs will occur. It's not even a question of when they will occur. The only question that remains to be answered are what they mean and whether they are biblical harbingers of things to come for the world and for God's people. The vision by the great river Hiddekel. This is chapters 10 through 12. I didn't cover 12 in this one, but that's that entire vision covers those 3 chapters. The light that Daniel received from God was given especially for these last days. The vision he saw by the banks of the Ulai, which we talked about last night, and the Hiddekel, the great rivers of Shinar, are now in process of fulfillment, and some of the events foretold. That all could mean a lot. We cannot overlook the small things. All the events foretold will soon come to pass. And I believe she wrote this in about 1902. I'm not real sure. On August 15, 1871, a letter was written by Albert Pike to Mazzini outlining the plans for 3 world wars, which were seen as essential to bring about the one world order. The agendas were as follow. The First World War was to overthrow the power of the czars in Russia, who were protecting orthodoxy to birth an atheistic communistic state. The Second World War was to strengthen communism in direct opposite to Judeo-Christian culture and to bring in a Zionist state in Israel. The Third World War will be a Middle Eastern war involving Judaism and Islam, and eventually spreading internationally. In March of 2014, Israel, for the first time in history, closed all of its embassies and consulates. I knew it. I was just testing you. Worldwide. And recently threatened to destroy those who would attack them. Could this mean that Israel expects World War III to break out and is acting accordingly? Judaism. Our hand is always on the pulse, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said Sunday. Our finger is a responsible one, and if needed, is on the trigger. We will always know how to protect our citizens and our country against those who come to injure us or try to attack us. Islam. Iran is again asserting that Armageddon is at hand and that the Islamic regime's followers, indeed all of Islam, must prepare for a monumental change in the world. The judgments of God are in the land. The wars and rumors of wars say clearly that the time of trouble, which is to increase until the end, is very near at hand. We have no time to lose. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. The prophecies of the 11th of Daniel, the ones that we're going to cover verse by verse, have almost reached their final fulfillment. Their final fulfillment. It means this is going to happen again. Daniel 10 verse 1. In the 3rd year of Cyrus, king of Persia, a thing was revealed unto me, Daniel, and the thing was true, but the time appointed was long. And he understood the thing and had understanding of the vision. This last vision recorded by Daniel, which he received by the river Hiddekel, takes place in chapters 10 through 12. Daniel now realized that these visions were not for his time, but for the time of the end, many years yet in the future. The more firmly we stand under the banner of the 3rd angel's message, the more clearly shall we understand the prophecies of Daniel and Revelation. For Revelation is the supplement of Daniel. These messages were given not for those who uttered these prophecies, but for us who are living amidst the scenes of their fulfillment. This mighty heavenly messenger sent from God to Daniel is revealing to him the impending decree. In those days, I, Daniel, was mourning 3 full weeks. And in the 4th and 20th day of the 1st month, as I was by the side of the great river, which is Hiddekel, I lifted up mine eyes and looked, and I saw this great vision. World War III. Soon grievous troubles will rise among the nations, troubles that will not cease until Jesus comes. As never before, we need to press together, serving him who has prepared his throne in the heavens and whose kingdom ruleth over all. God has not forsaken his people, and our strength lies in not forsaking him. And now I will show thee the truth, or the certainty. Behold, there shall stand up yet 3 kings in Persia. 3 kings in Persia, who are they? Since the angel told Daniel that I am come to make thee understand what shall befall thy people in the latter days, we need to look for the modern kings or rulers of Persia or Iran, which is its modern name. Reza Shah Pahlavi ruled from 1925 to 1941. It was he who asked the international community to call Persia by its internal name, Iran. Thus, in 1935, the name Persia was changed to Iran. And his son, Mohammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, ruled from 1941 to 79. When there was a revolution and he was overthrown, the Islamic government was installed. The third one is Ayatollah Khomeini, 1979 to 1989. He was the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. Daniel 11:2 continued, and the 4th shall be far richer than they all. The Ayatollah Ali Khomeini, 1989, he is the current leader, supreme leader of the Islamic Republic. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei is Iran's spiritual leader and highest authority. His voice overrides all others in the hierarchy. He is widely regarded as the figurehead in the country's conservative establishment. His authority overrides that of the president. This makes Ayatollah Ali Khamenei the 4th king, which shall be far richer than they all. And by his strength, through his riches, he shall stir up all against the realm of Grecia. Far richer not only means to be wealthy, but also means to be insolent, or means haughty, brutal in behavior, grossly disrespectful, rude, and arrogant. Does this not describe the Iranian supreme leader Ali Khamenei in his bold statements against Israel? Iran calls for Jewish genocide, Ayatollah says. Israel must be eliminated. Kill all Jews and annihilate Israel. Continuing with Daniel 11:2, and by his, or Islam's strength or power, through his riches, his wealth, and insolence, he shall stir up or wake up all against the realm, the empire of Grecia, the powers of the West. Is the Iranian supreme leader stirring up all the Muslim world against the Western powers and her ally Israel? Khomeini announced that Iran will support any nation or group that attacks the cancerous tumor of Israel. The Islamic government of Iran must take the helm. Defensive jihad could certainly take place when Islam is threatened, and Muslims must defend Islam and kill their enemies. It is a must and the duty of Muslims. And a mighty king, president, shall stand up that shall rule with great dominion, United States of America, and do according to his will. I think we see that happening. Desire. And when he, the President of the USA, shall stand up, make his major military show of force, his kingdom shall be broken or shattered. And we went through this last night in Daniel 8 of the notable horn being broken. And so this is just kind of repeating it. And his power shall be divided or split towards the four winds, the regions of heaven scattered to the four winds. And not to his posterity, that means the residue or future generations of the USA. Nor according to his dominion a republic constitution which he ruled, sovereignty or independence. For his, the USA kingdom, a republic constitution shall be plucked up or destroyed. Even for others, that's foreigners, besides those, or to the exclusion of Americans. If a Protestant government sacrifices the principles that have made them a free, independent nation, and through legislation brings into the Constitution principles that will propagate papal falsehood and papal delusions, they will be plunged into the Roman horrors of the Dark Ages. They, USA, Mexico, and Canada, are sharing their laws and regulations so we can harmonize and integrate our laws into a North American structure, not a USA structure. And not to his posterity, nor according to his dominion which he ruled. The shadow government, the elitists, do indeed have a plan. And it is a plan that does not include any vestige, and that means a trace or sign of something that is no longer present, of U.S. sovereignty or constitutional government. The affirmative task before us is to create a new world order, and that's our Vice President, Joe Biden. He said that in 2013. And of course, here's our past President Bush. Out of these troubled times, our fifth objective, a new world order. Notice the date, September 11, 1990. That was 11 years before the towers went down to the day. Sovereignty, independence, the right to self-government without interference from outside. On November 17, 1991, CNN ran a special report entitled Doomsday Government. The commentator stated that if the government was wiped out, that an unelected foreigner could possibly take over the government of the United States. Continuing with Daniel 11, and shall be divided towards the four winds of heaven. America is about to see its economic, political, religious, and military power scattered with this coming collapse. There are chiefly four regions in which the near future society of nations will be fashioned: the United States, the Soviet Union, mainland China, and Western Europe. It is the pushing of the two horns on the ram, Media, Iraq, and Persia, Iran, that brings down or causes modern Babylon, USA, the notable horn, to shatter economically. As the feathers of America's eagle wings are being plucked out one at a time, a slow, humiliating death, her might as the number one power will be scattered to the four winds of heaven. The USA will be the first of the three horns to be plucked up by this little horn rising to power at the end of time. The roots of the United States of America is Protestantism with a Republican constitutional government. This was her source of power. Here is a striking figure of the rise and growth of our own nation, and the lamb-like horn, emblems of innocence and gentleness, well represent the character of our government as expressed in its two fundamental principles, republicanism and Protestantism. These two fundamental principles, republicanism and Protestantism, gave America the power of independence, the right to self-government without interference from outside sources. The word to root up means to exterminate, completely destroy. Republicanism and Protestantism, our Constitution and Bill of Rights and American sovereignty will be gone forever. To root up also means to hamstring something. To hamstring means to thwart somebody or something, making them powerless or ineffective. America will become powerless and ineffective as an eagle which has had its wings plucked. The Club of Rome commissioned Brzezinski to write the Technotronic Era. This is a post-industrial zero-growth plan designed in part to cripple U.S. industry in order to prepare us for the New World Order. Cripple, to impair in functioning or progress. It's the same meaning as hamstrung. As we near the close of this world's history, the prophecies recorded by Daniel demand our special attention as they relate to the very time in which we are living. Daniel 11 is a description of Satan's ultimate battle plan to seize and sit on Zion, the mount of the congregation on the sides of the north, and to claim the ownership of the site of redemption, Mount Moriah, where the Garden of Eden was lost by Adam and bought back by the precious blood of Jesus, the second Adam. The serpent took it the first time by smooth talk, fraud, and deception, and now at the end, the dragon will seize it again by smooth talk, fraud, and deception, increased by 1,000-fold. He will captivate the minds of countless millions by sitting on the Temple Mount in Jerusalem as the Messiah, the Prince. This is Satan's final attempt to fulfill his great boast against Yahweh. This is the story of brother against brother, Cain against Abel, Ishmael against Isaac, Esau against Jacob, Islam against Israel, contending for the birthright. These are the players and the events leading up to the final and complete destruction of the enemies of God. The battle over the birthright. So what is a birthright? The rights or privileges belonging to the firstborn son to succeed his father as the head of the family, to inherit a double portion of his father's property. The birthright also carries with it a blessing, and it was also where the messianic line was to come through. What is this birthright in which these two brothers are battling over? This land. Genesis 12:1. Now the Lord had said unto Abram, Get thee out of thy country and from thy kindred and from thy father's house into a land that I will show thee. And Abram took Sarai his wife, and they went forth to go into the land of Canaan. And the Lord appeared unto Abraham and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land. For all the land which thou seest, to thee will I give it, and to thy seed forever. In the same day the Lord made a covenant with Abraham, saying, Unto thy seed I have given this land. And I will give unto thee and to thy seed after thee the land wherein thou art a stranger, all the land of Canaan, for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. God's second promise to Abraham, I am the Lord that brought thee out of the Ur of Chaldees to give thee this land to inherit it. And I will establish my covenant between me and thee and thy seed after thee in their generations for an everlasting covenant. God promised Abraham and his seed this land. This land blood covenant which God made to Abraham, in which the inheritance was to go to the promised son, is that which the two brothers, Ishmael and Isaac, are battling for. The big question is, Ishmael was the firstborn son of Abraham, but the divine everlasting covenant of this birthright was given only to the son born to Abraham's wife, Sarah. Hagar was Sarah's handmaid. And Abraham said unto God, Oh, that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee. King of the north, Ishmael, Islam, and king of the south, Isaac, Israel. We are standing on the threshold of great and solemn events. Many of the prophecies are about to be fulfilled in quick succession. Every element of power is about to be set to work. Past history will be repeated, old controversies will arouse to new life, and perils will beset God's people on every side. Intensity is taking hold of the human family. It is permeating everything upon the earth. This is a quote from the PLO Minister of Justice, we must remember that the main enemy of the Palestinian people now and forever is Israel. This is a truth that must never leave our minds. After the United Nations recognized Israel's independence in 1948, Haj Aman al-Husseini, the Grand Mufti, declared, "The entire Jewish population in Palestine must be destroyed or driven into the sea. Allah has bestowed upon us the rare privilege of finishing what Hitler only begun. Let the jihad begin. Murder all the Jews, murder them all." The skirmishes in the occupied land are part of a war of destiny. The outcome of hundreds of years of wars will be defined in Palestinian land. Israel must be wiped off the map, said Ahmadinejad. The annihilation of the Zionist regime will come. We should not settle for a piece of land, he said, of Israel's pullout from the Gaza Strip. Daniel 10:14. Now I, Gabriel, am come to make thee, Daniel, understand what shall befall thy people Israel in the latter days, for yet the vision is for many days. Iran's highest authority lashed out against Israel today with some of the harshest comments about the Jewish state in recent memory. Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, the black-turbaned Ayatollah, who is Iran's top political and military figure, said, Iran's hostility to Israel extends to Israeli people as well as the government. Iran and Israel were on a collision course. A Muslim nation cannot remain indifferent to the arch foes of the Muslim world. What are the plans and goals of Islam? Officials of the Islamic regime held their annual conference on the Mahadism doctrine to prepare for the coming of the last Islamic Messiah, the Shiites' 12th Imam Mahdi. Shiites, whose clerics rule Iran with an iron fist, believe that at the end of time, Mahdi, a 9th century prophet, will reappear with Jesus Christ at his side, kill all the infidels, and raise the flag of Islam in all four corners of the world. Establishing worldwide Islamic governance, righteous government is the key to Mahdi's return. It has been stated in the Islamic hadith that a wave of uprisings take place before the main uprising, and that the righteous government takes place before the coming, which I hope Iran's Islamic revolution is that. Many regime officials spoke of the importance of the Shiite ideology on Mahdi's coming and the need for jihad for the final battle. The coming of His Highness is assured. The prophet has promised that people from the east, meaning Iran, take power and prepare for the government of Imam Mahdi. We have no time to lose. Troublous times are before us. The world is stirred with the spirit of war. Soon the scenes of trouble spoken of the prophecies will take place. I think I've already read this one. The prophecy in the 11th chapter of Daniel has nearly reached its complete fulfillment. Much of the history that has taken place in fulfillment of this prophecy will be repeated. Blood moon number 1. Biblical types are spoken of as shadows which continue until the reality or total fulfillment occurs. Dark forces at work. After his speech to the UN in September, Ahmadinejad was caught on videotape telling a cleric that during the speech, an aura, a halo, appeared around his head, right on the podium of the General Assembly. It seemed as if a hand was holding them there and had opened their eyes to receive the message from the Islamic Republic. I felt the atmosphere suddenly change, and for those 27 to 28 minutes, the leaders of the world did not blink. Israel's Netanyahu. Iran poses greater threat than Islamic State. United Nations. A nuclear-armed Iran would pose a far greater threat to the world than Islamic State militants who have seized large swaths of Syria and Iraq, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Monday. Now remember, Iran is the higher horn that comes up last, so we haven't dealt with them yet, and we're getting ready to do so. Make no mistakes, ISIS, Islamic State, must be defeated, Netanyahu told the United Nations General Assembly. But to defeat ISIS and leave Iran as a threshold nuclear power is to win the battle and lose the war. Then the king of the south, Israel, shall be strong over his enemies, and this is the new president of Israel. But one of his princesses, head persons, could it be prime minister of Israel, shall be stronger than he is, the king, and have dominion. The prince's dominion, shall be a great dominion. This war is the one Israel is facing right now with Syria, Gaza, and Iran. The vision of Daniel 8, the ram and the he-goat. She shall be very successful and come away with much spoils, enlarging their domain in fulfillment of this verse. As Daniel was instructed to seal up these visions and prophecies, he did so by obscuring them in such a manner that their exact meaning would remain unclear until the time of the end. Then they were to be manifested, and when they were to be manifested and be fulfilled. This next verse, when the word daughter is used, because of its context in this vision as well as other prophecies, the meaning of the word daughter is referring to the city of Jerusalem rather than to a person. Daniel 11:6. And in the end or the extremity of years, they, Islam, king of the north, and the king of the south, Israel, shall join themselves or be coupled together. Doesn't look possible right now, does it? But you will see what happens. For the king's daughter of the south, Jerusalem, shall come or be given to the king of the north, Islam, to make an agreement, a peace treaty. But she, Jerusalem, Israel, shall not retain or withhold the power of the arm, and that's the military might. Neither shall he, Islam, stand, nor his arm or power. But she, daughter of Israel or Jerusalem, shall be given up or surrendered, and as well as they that brought her, the citizen, the Jewish people, he that begot her, or show, it means to show lineage, it has to be a Jew, Jewish king of Israel, and he, the prince, prime minister, and armed forces that strengthened her, Israel, in these times. This verse, number 6, takes place months later at verse 17. Could it be that verse 6 and 7 were inserted here to give us understanding of who the players of the closing scenes are? Verse 7 is interpreting verse 5. Daniel 11:7. But out of a branch, that means a descendant of her, Israel's roots. It means a direct ancestor, a Jew, someone of Hebrew descent and Jewish belief. Shall one prince, the prime minister of Israel, stand up in his, king of Israel's estate. In other words, he's going to actually be more powerful. Which shall come with an army or force and shall enter into the fortress or fortified place, Damascus, of the king of the north, Islam, and shall deal against them, Islam, and shall prevail, become mighty. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's father was a Maccabean Jew, a follower of Judas Maccabeus, who led the revolt of the Jews against Syria in 168 BC. These men were brave and courageous with a very strong belief in the Jewish heritage and fought valiantly for its cause. Is history repeating itself as Prime Minister, a Maccabean Jew, once again stands boldly against Syria? Has Benjamin Netanyahu come to the kingdom for such a time as this? Netanyahu secretly warns Hamas, we'll wipe you out. Benjamin Netanyahu has secretly issued a stern warning to Hamas that if the rocket campaign continues, he will not hesitate to eliminate the terror group's leadership in both the Gaza Strip and Syria. The warning is particularly strong since Hamas's leadership in Syria is protected by the Damascus regime. Iran and Syria are allies. Iran told Syria that if Israel attacks Iran, then Syria should strike Israel. But if Israel attacks Syria, then Iran should attack Israel. Israel knows that they cannot fight on two major fronts at the same time. Could this be why Prime Minister Netanyahu has been negotiating with President Obama on this war? Will Israel take on Syria while USA deals with Iran in this coming war? Major multi-front war on the near horizon. For the first time in decades, the Middle East is on the brink of a war that could involve multiple countries on multiple fronts with many dimensions. We now know that the probability of war is now extremely high. President Obama and Prime Minister Netanyahu are in the first of several steps on the path to war. The only major point of disagreement between them is not whether to attack Iran, it's merely when. Damascus is one of the oldest continuous inhabited cities of the world which has never been destroyed, but that is about to change. Isaiah and Jeremiah both foretold of the doom of Damascus, in which the prophets predict the overnight destruction of that great city in the last days. Jeremiah, concerning Damascus, they have heard evil tidings, they are faint-hearted. There is sorrow on the sea, it cannot be quieted. Damascus is waxed feeble, and turneth herself to flee, and fear has seized on her, anguish and sorrow have taken her. Therefore her young men shall fall in her streets, and all the men of war shall be cut off in that day. And I will kindle a fire in the wall of Damascus. Now Isaiah, the burden or doom of Damascus. Behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be a ruinous heap. And did you see how large that city was in that picture? It was huge. The fortress also shall cease, and the kingdom from Damascus, and the remnant of Syria. And behold, at eventide trouble, and before morning he is not. One can smell from the crisis in Syria the coming of the end of times and the coming of the last Islamic Messiah. Based on Hadith's collection of Islamic traditions by Muhammad and his descendants, the Syrian revolution is a start to the coming of Mahdi, the Shiites' first imam. It also states that a sign of the coming will be the fall of the walls of Damascus. They're looking for it too. Israel will prevail in this coming war with Islam, Iran, and Syria, the second horn on the ram. And because of this victory, could it be that Israel's prime minister, will be praised and made strong above the king or president of Israel? The king of the south will grow powerful, but one of his princes will grow more powerful still, with an empire greater than his own. Is this the antitype of King Saul and David? And David went out wheresoever Saul sent him, and behaved himself wisely, and Saul set him over the men of war. And he was accepted in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it came to pass, when David was returned from the slaughter of the Philistines, that the women came out of the cities of Israel, singing and dancing, and said, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. God's blessings and warnings to the Israelites during war with other nations. And Israel shall also carry captives or exile prisoners into Egypt with their gods, with their princes, and with their precious vessels of silver and of gold. Does Israel take these captives from Syria and bring them and their gods to Jerusalem, which is called spiritual Egypt? It says that great city, this is Revelation 11:8, that great city which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also our Lord was crucified. That's Jerusalem. Spiritually means temperamentally or intellectually akin, connected by an affinity of the mind, spirit, or temperament. Does the bringing of these foreign gods to Israel also bring with it a curse? And the Lord thy God will put out those nations before thee by little and little. Thou mayest not consume them at once. But the Lord thy God shall deliver them unto thee, and shall restore them with a mighty destruction until they be destroyed. And he shall deliver their kings into thine hand, and there shall be no man able to stand before thee. The graven images of their gods shall ye burn with fire. Thou shalt not desire the silver or gold that is on them, nor take it unto thee, lest thou be snared like with it therein. For it is an abomination unto the Lord thy God. Neither shalt thou bring an abomination into thine house, lest thou be a cursed thing like it. But thou shalt surely detest it, and thou shalt utterly abhor it, for it is a cursed thing. Continuing with verse 8, and he, Israel, shall continue or stand secure more years, that means a revolution of time, than or against the king of the north, Islam. Years just means to duplicate, to strike again, repeat, return, and do the second time. In other words, Israel will stand secure for a while, but her enemies will return and attack again. Verse 8 is fulfilled in verse 11. So the king of the south, Israel, shall come or retreat back into his own kingdom and shall return to his own land, Israel. Blood moon number 2. But Islam's sons, the nations of or Muslims, shall be stirred up and angry and shall assemble, gather up a multitude of great forces, many soldiers. And Islam shall certainly come and overflow and pass through or cross over. Then shall Islam, return, come again to war and be stirred up angry, even to Israel's fortress of defense. The Muslim nations will be angry and assemble together to form a multitude of great armies to launch a massive attack, thinking to overwhelm Israel by the great multitudes of forces coming against them. They will carry the war right up to Israel's stronghold. Then the northern kingdom's sons will stir themselves up and gather a multitude of great armies, and he will then launch an attack, inundate, and pass through. Then he will once again stir himself up right up to the southern stronghold. Muslims must defend Islam and kill their enemies. Waging war against the enemies with whom war is inevitable is a must and duty of Muslims. Israel wins the second war against Islam. And the king of the south, Israel, shall be moved with anger, provoked, and shall come forth or go out to fight with him, even with the king of the north, Islam. And Islam, shall set forth or raise up a great multitude, but the multitude shall be given or delivered up into Israel's hand or power. And do you see that little circle up there where Israel is? And it's totally surrounded by these Muslim nations. Israel versus Arab lands. It says Israel is bordered by 22 hostile Arab nations that are 640 times her size and 65 times her population. Jewish population worldwide is 13 million. Muslim population worldwide is 2.1 billion. And they're trying to take Israel, and they lose 2 wars. This is incredible. And this is in Leviticus. And ye shall chase your enemies, and they shall fall before you by the sword. And 5 of you shall chase 100, and 100 of you shall put 10,000 to flight. And your enemies shall fall before you by the sword. And when Israel, has taken away the multitudes, his enemy, Israel's heart shall be lifted up, haughty and proud. Ooh, unfortunate. And Israel, shall cast down or cut down many 10,000s, that's myriads of their enemies, but Israel, shall not be strengthened or prevailed by it. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. You know, Scripture cannot be broken. If we could just realize this. This is where Israel fails. She becomes proud because of her mighty supernatural victories over her enemies. They take the credit rather than giving it to Yahweh, but Scripture cannot be broken. Now the tables are turned. But if you will not hearken unto me and will not do all of these commandments, I will break the pride of your power, and I will make your heaven as iron, servitude, and your earth as brass, judgment. Blood moon number 3. But one key element ties these different movements, Islamic fundamentalists, in different countries together: the desire to return to the glory days of Islam by forcefully liberating former Muslim lands. Here's the former Persian Empire, in which, of course, they want the whole world, but they definitely want to return as much of their former land as they can. At the top of every Islamic movement list is the liberation of one particular city, Al-Quds, the Arabic name for Jerusalem. For the king of the north, Islam, shall return and come back and shall set forth or raise up a multitude greater, more mighty than the former, and shall certainly come after certain years with a great mighty army and with much riches, vast resources. Simply put, the king of the north will once again raise a multitude greater than the first. At the end of times, he will launch an attack with a great army and vast resources. That's taken from the Tanakh. Iran calls for Jewish genocide. Ayatollah says Israel must be eliminated. State-sponsored website outlines plan for doing it. Kill all Jews and annihilate Israel. Iran's Ayatollah lays out legal and religious justification for attack. The following is a quote from the Quran. And slay them, the non-believers, wherever ye find them, and drive them out of the places whence they drove you out. For persecution of Muslims is worse than slaughter of non-believers. And fight them until persecution is no more and religion is for Allah. Introducing another power, the robbers. And in those times there shall many stand up or rise up, take up arms against the king of the south, Israel. Also the robbers, or the sons of the lawless men of thy people, the Jews. And sons of the lawless men of your people shall exalt themselves to establish a vision, but they will stumble. The robbers of thy people, literally the sons of the breakers of thy people. If understood objectively, the passage would mean those who act violently against thy people. In this sense, it has been taken as referring to the Romans, who eventually, in 63 BC, robbed the Jews of their independence. Here we have the robber Romans rising to become the king of the north. Continuing with verse 14, the robbers shall exalt themselves or swear to establish or to confirm the vision, Daniel 7 and 8, but they shall fall or fail. As you can see, little by little, they're progressing forward in all of this. To establish the vision, the Romans, more than any other people, are the subject of Daniel's prophecy, the visions which predicted the existence of such a power. These robbers of God's people have an understanding of Daniel's prophecies concerning their role at the end of time of taking away the daily from the Jewish nation, and they are eager to accomplish this. They are the fourth beast, the iron kingdom. Behold, a fourth beast, dreadful and terrible and strong exceedingly, and it had great iron teeth. So the king of the north, Islam, shall come and cast up, that means to pour out a mount or to surround and take or capture the most fenced, fortified cities. And the arms or armies of the south, Israel, shall not withstand or endure, neither his chosen people, the select best. Neither shall there be any strength, force, or power to withstand. The Palestinian people are prepared to sacrifice the last boy and the last girl so that the Palestinian flag will be flown over the walls, the churches, and the mosques of Jerusalem. The words of Jesus to Israel. For the day shall come upon thee, Jerusalem, that thine enemies shall cast a trench, military mound about thee, and compass thee around. That means to encircle all around, that is, blockade completely, and keep thee constrained, hold in on every side. But he, Islam, that cometh against him, Israel, shall do according to his, Islam's own will, desire, and pleasure, and none shall stand before him. Netanyahu now says Israel won't withdraw from West Bank. And he, Islam, shall stand or dwell in the glorious land, coveted land Israel, which by his, Islam's hand or power, Israel will be consumed, ruined or waste. In the end, there will be a collision. The Palestinians will never give up on their own state. Netanyahu will find that out for himself. The West Bank is the heart. The adversary will do as he pleases with no opposition, and all of Israel will come wholly under Islamic rule. Back to Leviticus. But if ye will not hearken unto me, and will not do all these commandments, I will set my face against you, and ye shall be slain before your enemies. They that hate you shall rule over you. The invader, Islam, will then do to the southern king Israel as he pleases, and none will stand in his way. He will also stand in the coveted land with annihilation in his hand. Calling Israel a danger to Islam, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said the opportunity must not be lost to move this corrupting material. It is a jurisprudential justification to kill all Jews and annihilate Israel. Continuing with the words of Jesus, and shall lay thee even with the ground, and thy children within thee. And they shall not leave in thee one stone upon another, because thou knewest not the time of thy visitation or judgment. The Wailing Wall is the only part of the old temple which is left from when Jerusalem was destroyed by Titus in AD 70. Is this the time when there will not be one stone left standing, surrendering the birthright? And this is where we'll stop for tonight. We'll continue on tomorrow night.
Is there anyone out there that can stand up and repeat all of that?